Biology class. As we have studied in the previous class, we have started lesson number 2, that is microorganisms, friends and foes. Now in continuation with that chapter, microorganisms, friend and foe, today we will understand about food poisoning and food preservation. Now food poisoning, as we have studied in the previous class, there are certain microorganisms which help us and there are certain microorganisms which are harmful. They are acting as our enemy and they cause certain diseases in our body. They cause the certain things which are not favorable to us. So in continuation with that, food poisoning is there. The food, some vomiting, loose motions you might have. That is because when we eat certain stale food or certain rotten food or the food which is not good that we eat, then at that time it causes vomiting, loose motions in us. So the food poisoning is through the microorganisms. Now microorganisms like bacteria, fungi, they causes the food to get spoiled. Their action causes certain release of toxins in the food which causes the food to get spoiled and become poisonous. Now bacteria include Salmonella and Clostridium and fungi include Aspergillus and molds. Do remember these names, children, they are very important. Now come to food hygiene. How this food poisoning can be prevented, like our health. Our personal hygiene is important to remain healthy. Similarly, the food hygiene is important to keep the food fresh and safe from the effect of microorganisms. Now come the food preservation. Preservation of food is very important. In the food preservation, the main aim of food preservation is to avoid the food getting spoiled. When the food gets spoiled by bacteria and fungus, what happens? It starts emanating bad smell. It smells foul odor. The nutritive value of the food changes and it does not taste the same. So, and it causes certain diseases in our body when we eat that spoiled food. So, in order to avoid the food, we should preserve the food. And there are certain importance of food preservation. The importance of food preservation include it reduces the food spoilage. It helps in retaining the nutritive value. It ensures the food availability. Food availability means in off seasons also you can get certain type of food items which are easily not available at that time. So in off seasons also the food availability can be ensured. The shortage of food in the world can be solved. This problem can be solved by proper preservation of food. Increase in the storage period means we can store the food for a longer period of time and we can use it by storing it for a longer period of time. Now there are certain methods by which we can preserve the food. Now first is sun drying. For example, the potato chips. Your mother must have cut the potato chips and sun-dried it in the open terrace of your house during the summers. Now this helps in the preservation of potatoes. Now when you feel like eating the potato chips, you used to tell your mother to fry them. So that is how it can be preserved. The sun-drying is the easiest method of food preservation. Other things also can be preserved by sun-drying, like raisins. Grapes can be turned into raisins by sun-drying. Next is heating. By heating the food, when we are increasing the temperature of the food, we are eliminating all the harmful growth in the food, that is microorganisms growth in the food. So by heating also, food can be preserved. By salting and by the use of sugar. Salting and sugar also helps in the preservation of food with the help of salt. You cut the avlas and then put some salt in it and then it can be sun-dried. Now with the help of oil, vinegar and spices, the food preservation can be done. The common example is pickles, like mango pickle, lemon pickle. All these can be preserved with the help of oil, vinegar and spices. How oil is preserving the food here? The oil used to form a layer on the surface of the pickle, on the surface of the food item, and that cuts the contact of air from the food particles. So when the contact is cut down, then the growth of microorganisms can be prevented. So that is how oil is helping. Now come to the smoking. When we heat the food and then smoke it properly, for example, fish and meat can be preserved through smoking. Now refrigeration and freezing. It is a very common method of food preservation. In refrigeration, when we cook certain food and it is extra, then we used to keep it in the fridge to be consumed later on. For refrigeration can keep the food free of microorganisms, can keep the food fresh for 2 to 3 days. And freezing, the deep freezers and the freezers can keep the food fresh for a longer duration of time, for 15 to 20 days, for even a month. Now pasteurization. Pasteurization is an important technique in food preservation and it has been invented by Louis Pasteur. A scientist, Louis Pasteur, gave this term pasteurization and invented the technique of pasteurization. The common example of pasteurization is the milk. Milk is easily spoiled by the growth of microorganisms. So, there was a huge spoilage of milk. So, in order to prevent that spoilage of milk, the milk is pasteurized before putting it into the milk packets. Now, how the pasteurization is done? Pasteurization is done by heating the milk to about 70 degrees Celsius for 15 to 30 seconds. And after that, it is suddenly cooled and then it is kept in an airtight packets. That is how it prevents the growth of microorganisms in the milk, and milk can be kept fresh for few days. Now proper storage and packing. With the help of proper storage like airtight containers, you can preserve the food. When we keep certain lentils, pulses in an airtight container, for example biscuits also, when you keep in the airtight container, it helps in the prevention of spoilage of biscuits, pulses.
Today, food poisoning. Have you seen the bread left for 2 to 3 days get spoiled? Some microorganisms grow on the food and produce toxic substances. These toxic substances makes the food poisonous. The spoiled food emits foul smell. Its color changes and it always tastes bad. If such food is consumed, it may cause serious illness or even death. If the food items, vegetables, fruits, and other food items are kept for long without any method of preservation, then microorganisms grow on them and spoil them. Food preservation. Have you observed that the pickle which our mothers make in summers is used throughout the year and it is not spoiled? How is it prevented from spoiling? Well, there are some common methods which are used to preserve the food from the attack of microorganisms. Some important methods of food preservation are chemical methods, heat and cold treatments, food preservation, chemical methods. How food can be preserved using certain chemicals. Some common chemicals like edible oil, salt, sugar are used to prevent the growth of the organisms in food items. Substances which are used to preserve the food from spoilage. These substances are called Food preservatives. Common salt is used to preserve fish and meat. Salt is applied on meat and fish, which checks the growth of microorganisms. And the meat and fish can be sun-dried also along with applying the salt. The salt removes the water content of the microorganisms present in fish and meat. Amla, raw mangoes, and tamarind are also preserved using common salt. Sugar is added to jams, jellies, and squashes. Sugar reduces the moisture content of the substances and hence the growth of microorganisms is inhibited, is stopped. Oil, vinegar, these are also used to preserve the different food items. Pickles, vegetables, fruits, fish, meat, they all can be preserved by using oil and vinegar. Oil cuts the contact of food from the air and hence prevents the growth of bacteria. Vinegar kills the microorganisms and prevents food spoilage. Food preservation by heat and cold treatments. Why do we boil milk before it is consumed? Well, high temperature of milk during the process of boiling kills the bacteria present in it. Similarly, low temperatures also helps in keeping the check on growth of bacteria. Therefore, we keep the food in the refrigerator, which we don't need right now, like vegetables and fruits and even cooked food can be saved in the refrigerator. And meat and fish, they are kept in cold storage in the supermarkets. Have you ever noticed that the milk we received in packets does not spoil easily? It is because the milk we receive in packets is pasteurized. What is pasteurization? It is the process of heating the liquid food up to a certain temperature to kill the microorganisms present in it. During the pasteurization technique, the milk is heated to 70 degrees Celsius for 15 to 30 seconds and then it is cooled rapidly to 10 degrees Celsius, chilled and stored. Food preservation by storage and packing. Foods like vegetables, fruits are sealed in airtight packets. Some food is processed and packed in airtight containers to prevent the attack of microorganisms like peas and corns. Some vegetables, fruits, dry fruits like almonds, cashews, they are also packed in sealed packets. Now, food preservation have certain advantages also. Food preservation is useful in many ways. It reduces the wastage. The food can be stored easily for a longer duration of time. So it reduces the food wastage. It can be stored easily for longer periods of time, and it is easy to transport the food preserved to long distances. So it's easy to transport the food preserved to long distances. Seasonal foods can also be preserved and can be eaten in off seasons also. So let us summarize what we have learned today. Some microorganisms grow on the food and produce toxic substances. Now, these toxic substances make the food poisonous. The spoiled food emits foul smell, and its color also changes, and it always tastes bad. Important methods of food preservation are chemical methods and heat and cold treatments. And some traditional methods are also there for food preservation. Substances which are used to preserve the food from spoilage are called food preservatives. Common salt is used to preserve fish and meat. Salt removes the water content of microorganisms present in fish and meat and hence control their growth. Sugar is added to jams, jellies, and squashes. Sugar reduces the moisture content of these substances and hence the growth of microorganisms is inhibited.